All right, we've been paired with La Cicada on chess.com, 1510 games. Welcome to Feisty Chess. This is your host, Ben. We've got an Alekhine's defense. Let's play into this time with e5. I went for knight c3 last time, but let's mix it up a bit. Two Alekhine's defenses in our first 20 or so games. And I like this line with d4 immediately and then c4 to follow that. Okay, La Cicada is a little bit higher rated than me right now, but we appear to have stumped him or her already. Don't have my beverage this time. So Alekhine's defense, named after Alexander Alekhine, world champion, is very hypermodern, maybe the most hypermodern opening, because it doesn't put pawns in the center. It puts a piece out immediately to attack my center and encourages me to expand and fortify my center. Okay, I like the line with c4 here, although I can't say I know it all that well, but let's go for it anyway. We'll figure things out as we go. I know knight f3 is a standard move here. If I'm looking at bishop g4 here, hitting the bishop immediately with h3 is probably a good idea. Going for g6. Okay, plans here. Bishop looks good on e2. Simple. Takes the sting out of any pin on g4. Let's just get castled. Well, hold on. Bishop g7. This threatens something on e5, doesn't it? This would allow him to trade off queens if I simply castled here. Bishop f4 might be a way to really hang on to e5, but after knight d7 or knight c6, I'm just going to go ahead and castle. I'm not concerned about a trade of queens. I think I'll be fine. I still have control of the center and am slightly better on development. And I could make him give up the bishop pair for that trade of queens. Okay, there comes knight to c6. I could go for c5 now. That looks kind of unprincipled. Yeah, bishop f4 would really want to hang on to that pawn. It gets another piece out. I think in the end I'm going to have to trade on d6 though. Maybe doing that now rather than later is better. Because then I'm not leaving my b2 pawn unprotected if this diagonal should clear off. So let's go ahead and make that concession. Planning on putting a knight on c3. And why not now? That blunts this diagonal the bishop is on. Gets a piece out. Actually, a4, a5 might be a better plan than if we want to kick that knight on b6, kick that knight around. It does leave a hole on b4, however. d5 is also an option right here. Bishop g5 is an interesting idea of trying to pin that pawn. Holding onto the center and playing bishop g5 seems to make some sense. I just like getting my pieces out quickly. Also has ideas of queen d2 and maybe trading off those dark square bishops, which would probably benefit me. Looking at bishop g4 here. Bishop g5, bishop g4 makes a threat. Maybe my bishop wants to be on e3 in that case. Yeah, bishop on e3 would really establish a firm control over d4. Let's go for that. And if he does play bishop g4 now, I can just play h3 and make him either retreat or give me the bishop pair. Okay. But then c4 hangs. Is that tactically vulnerable, however? What other ways can I cover c4? I could just push c4, push c5. Playing b3 opens up that diagonal and sort of pins that pawn. I don't think that's a real issue right now. So yeah, that pawn is on an open file. I'm going to go ahead and play b3. I don't see any issues on the long diagonal there. I'll be able to play rook c1. And that also sort of shuts down his knight on b6 a little more. This is why we have our bishop on e3. We're just trying to hang on to d4, hang on to that center. If he plays e5, I'll have to take on e5, I suppose. Could have a lot of exchanges, and he might end up with the central majority. I'm not super convinced that that's all that important as we trade off pieces, however. Get to an endgame. Often it's more important to have a distant majority and make a distant passed pawn, but it'll all come down to the specifics of the position, of course. So yeah, next moves I'm eyeing are rook to c1. How about for black? Let's think in terms of him. Trading on f3 is an idea, just to try to weaken d4, but I can always get a knight to d2 if I really need to fortify d4. e5 is probably the most critical line here. I could push. I could very well push d5 once e5 has been played. I need to do something about that attack on my pawn, however. Pushing and hitting that knight with the idea of maybe knight d4 would be premature. He could kick that away with f5. A lot going on here. we're not way down on time. That's a nice change. We are a little down on time. Yeah, I think Alekhine's defense is good. I've had a difficult time against it. I used to play a guy at a chess club I went to that really knew his Alekhine's defense, and he was just very hard to beat. Very strong player. So I have a lot of respect for the Alekhine's defense, and I've thought about playing it myself. I really should expand my opening repertoire. I feel like I know a handful of openings really well, and it's time to grow that a bit. And the Alekhine might be a good direction to grow. I haven't played a lot of hyper-modern openings. Okay, we're equal on time. Expecting, again, either e5 or maybe bishop takes f3. The more I look at this, the more I like my position, though. I think white still does have an edge here. Long term, I might want to get my king's rook to e1. Kick that bishop with h3. Queen's rook to c1. Queen could even go to c2, perhaps, once d4 is shored up. Actually, queen d2 and then rook to d1 might be a better plan to clear that a1 square, clear that long diagonal, and protect that knight. Maybe black is puzzling over trying to find some way to exploit that long diagonal with two undefended pieces on a1 and c3. But he doesn't have a c-pawn anymore to make a break, so okay. Got a nice time edge here. I'm sure I'll find some way to blow that. So yeah, ideas for me next turn: h3, queen d2, rook to c1. a4 is still an idea. I've been saying I've been punching below my weight on chess.com. That, I suppose, remains to be seen. La Cicada is rated a bit higher than me. I know I lost my first couple chess.com games since I started playing, and that tanked a bunch of rating points since my K value was very low. My ratings responded much more wildly than you would think. But now I think, yeah, I'll win 28 points if I win this. Hoping to get to around 1900. That's where around where my USCF and FIDE ratings are. Asakata is really thinking on this. Not seeing any huge combinations he should have to be calculating here. But I've done the same thing in many a position like this, and I think there's a really useful phrase that says, long think, wrong think. Actually, now I'm noticing bishop takes f3. I could even consider playing queen e2 in this kind of position as long as his b pawn is undefended, because I'm looking at a line like, say it's my move here, queen c2, bishop takes f3, bishop takes f3, and then his bishop takes d4. And I can't really recapture that bishop because knight will take d4 and he'll hit both my queen and my bishop. But if I don't recapture, I can simply play bishop takes b7. Oh no, hold on. Bishop takes c6. Okay, that's a tricky kind of counting line. Bishop takes c6. Then he has to take on c3. And then I take on c3. And he recaptures on c6. And he has won a pawn in that line. A central pawn at that. But he's lost his dark square bishop, and I can play something like bishop h6, chase his rook away, and he's got a real weak dark square complex. I don't have a light square bishop at that point. But neither does he, and also I haven't weakened my light squares around my king as he's weakened his dark squares. Okay, La Cicada getting into blitz territory here. I'm getting no indications that the opponent has abandoned the game. Usually those things get picked up by whatever sensors that chess.com has working on these things. But so far it looks like just a really long think. Just checking my own connection here. Yeah, I'm good. I wonder if there's a way to give him some time. I think that's a function on Lee Chess, but I don't know how to do it on chess.com. There's e5. Okay. So we're back in business here. We have a good time advantage. Taking and then d5 seem to be the appropriate considerations here. Actually, rook c1 might work. Rook c1 might work because he's not, if he takes, look, let's imagine this, rook c1, e takes d4, I've got knight takes d4, and his bishop is actually hanging. And if he takes my bishop, I simply recapture with actually either knight, and d4 is solid, so is c3. Actually, queen d2 might be just as good there. Queen d2, d takes c4, so e takes d4, then knight takes d4. If he goes for bishop or knight takes d4, I've just got bishop takes g4, and he doesn't have anything else there. And actually I got the two bishops, for what that's worth. So maybe just queen d2, just to carry on with my business. Rook c1 makes me a little more comfortable because then my knight's not pinned. Yeah, rook c1 is probably better. Let's just double check that. And you can't push to e4 because I just take with the knight then. How about h3? Okay, hold on. Rook c1, bishop takes f3, bishop takes f3. Then he can take. That's the threat I need to worry about. Okay, that long think allowed me to forget some of that. Okay, I think I'd like to push. Get a little more space, and make him do something here. Pushing looks very natural. Well, there's a lot of tactics here that I maybe should have examined. e4 is the main tactical idea. Okay, he's just going to keep it simple. Now I better break this pin that's coming here with e4 being possible. And I disallow e4 with rook to c1. We might be getting a bishop here with knight to f5. But in that case, he kind of shuts down his own dark square bishop. And I also have tactics. Do I have tactics here? Knight takes e5? No, not really. Okay. Just getting his rook to an open file. I like h3 here. And what does he do with that bishop? If he puts it on f5, I'll be pretty happy. This also gives my king a little bit of left. Let's go for h3. Oops. I'll be happy to trade minors on f3 if he wants to give me the two bishops. Only one pair of pawns has been exchanged so far. So the two bishops is not really anything at the moment. Okay. Okay, I can put him in a pin with bishop to g4. It's not really a pin, though. No, it's not. And then bishop g4, knight e3, fe3, or f5 would shut that idea down. I really can't preserve my bishops here because they'll land a knight on d4. So okay. Develop the queen to d2. I think I'd like to capture with the pawn, though. But anyway, queen d2 might be a useful move to make. Okay. F takes e3. And I can play e4, but do I want to play e4 with my light squared bishop? I think I do. My rook is on this file, and I can get e4 in pretty much no matter what next move. And yeah, okay, we've got opposite colored bishops here. And both kings are a little more opened now, but I can shut down his bishop more than him shutting down mine here with a move like e4. So it gives my queen control over g5 again. And if he plays f4, I can play bishop g4 and plant that bishop on e6. That can't be too bad. If he takes, I've got a knight coming. Okay, queen comes there. A4 doesn't seem to have the sting it did earlier, since pieces have been traded off and that knight has more options available to it. Queen f1, I don't really like that queen up in my business there. Queen f2 or e1. Each of them gives up control of g5. Maybe just king h2? And then I can maybe think about g3. Let's go for that. We're losing our time edge here. And if he goes for f4, I've still got bishop as an annoying piece. And that really makes his bishop look a little silly. Okay, I did not see this. Fortunately, I have queen e1, d1 here. The only move. And I'll have g3. Okay. Ooh, he's still winning an exchange, isn't he? He's still winning an exchange. Okay. We will soldier on. Yeah, he would have played bishop d2 if I had taken with the other rook, and I'd have to bring a rook back to c1 anyway. Okay. Maybe we can get a clamp down. So many pawns on light squares. I don't want to open things up for his rooks at this point. Let's bring the king back here. Planning g4 perhaps. Okay. This is fine with me. do have a sneaky idea. If he doesn't play a5 or h5 here, then or clear this rook out, I'll be able to play bishop. Okay, that was the plan. Okay, I can take this idea of b6, b5 away from him at least. He can still go b5, but I can take en passant after knight takes. Things look more complicated. Okay, that's begging for this to be played. His knight is a real pain here. Let's go ahead and give this a check. If he goes to h1, maybe I have some kind of h8. No, he doesn't go to h8. Oh, this is no good. This is just no good. He's going to be on my knight. I'm losing that pawn. Things falling apart. Ugh, I didn't do any warm-ups beforehand. That was my mistake. He's got a time advantage on me now. There's not really any targets for my knight. That pawn is falling. This is just about resignable. Probably is resignable, but I tend to be a little stubborn in these scenarios. It's paid off occasionally. Okay. You will not take that pawn without me taking another one. Or maybe you will. Just not seeing things tonight. Let's call it. Okay, thank you for the game, La Cicada. Beat me with the time handicap, time odds. Okay. Yeah, the game slipped through my fingers, huh? Only 2 mistakes. Let's do the analysis here. Okay. Knight f3, e5. There it is. It's strange how it does that. b6. Knight c3. Okay. Albert Karpov variation, knight to b6. Modern. Let's see. Let's learn a little bit about this opening. Alekhine's defense. Well, I don't know where exactly the modern starts. Maybe that's the way I handled this with the central pawn mass. Bishop g7 is good. Castling is good. He takes d6 is best. Okay, it's got white with a big advantage here. Knight to c3 is an inaccuracy. Instead, d5. Go for d5 immediately. I see the value of that. d5, knight to e5, knight takes, bishop takes, knight to c3. His bishop's a little bit awkward out there. It can be kicked maybe with f4 at some point. Bishop g4 was best for him. h3 was best to prevent bishop g4. So just solidifying that knight. Yeah, I'm not patient enough in the openings to do that. Just playing h3 when you want your knight to continue to have control over d4 and e5, that's often the best idea. So I'll believe the computer on that one. I often make those kind of mistakes. I want to rush to get my pieces out, develop quickly. I like to play gambits. I wonder if there's a good gambit against the Alekhine. I should look into that. I don't think there really is. So yeah, h3. Still bishop e3 is fine. b3 is best. And then this is our long break. e5 is best. d5 is best. Good. Knight e7 is good. Rook c1 is best. I'm playing excellent here. Sometimes you play all the best moves and your opponent just plays really well and you make 1 or 2 mistakes and that's enough. So knight f5 was best there. Yeah, I thought rook c8 was a little lazy for him. h3 is best. Computer really likes how I've been playing. Knight f5 is best. Queen d2 is a mistake. So take that knight on b6 instead. But then, what's the plan after that? Bishop takes b6, a takes b6. I would think queen takes b6. Then bishop to g4 to pin that knight. That makes some sense. Queen to g5, rook e1. Let's see what's wrong with this. If I go for bishop takes b6, why can't he play queen takes and keep his a and b pawns intact? Bishop g4. Queen goes back to d8. And if it doesn't, that drops a pawn, h5. Let's say black makes a different move. Bishop takes f5, g takes f5, queen h5. Okay, and we just harmed his structure and opened his king a little bit. Okay, so the point here is, after this, even if he captures with the pawn, which the computer likes the best, this actually threatens to break up black's pawn structure. Although it gives him another central pawn and control over the center. So the idea is black plays here to avoid... So if I take... Well, he can still go g takes. But he's got a queen over here guarding these squares and preventing my queen from invading. Which doesn't look like that much of a threat to me in this position, but the computer evaluates it as such. Pawn differential here. So queen d1, d2 is a huge mistake. Costs me over a pawn and a half in the evaluations. Knight takes e3, f takes e3 is best. f5 is good. Yeah, and I was in too big a hurry. This is obviously a mistake. Oh, e4 is best. Alright, he doesn't have that yet. Queen h4 is excellent, and now I should go queen f2 or queen e1. Didn't see the threat of bishop h6. If I go g3 here, he just takes my queen, I take his, and he gets an exchange again on c1. So queen e1 is a good shot, but even after he takes... Okay, I did consider that line. I did consider this. If I make him take that extra tempo, let's look at this. I'm still lost, it looks like. But knight b5 is the way to go, because then, okay, I'm getting a pawn for my troubles. Rook comes to d8 to cover. Knight takes a7. Well, that can't be that good because I'm not keeping that pawn. Rook a8. Yeah. That... F takes e4. Bishop. Why not takes e4? I don't know. Bishop here. We'll get that pawn later, but then he's going to get his pawn back. I don't know that that makes a big difference. The obvious mistake here was another board vision error. I did not see these long bishop threats. This has often been a weakness of mine, and coming back to chess after a year off, it's still there, of course, and it takes some work to get rid of that. So I'm going to need to make a conscious effort to look for these long diagonals. So queen f2 would have been best here, but still likes black better. I mean, I've got a pretty bad bishop. So king h2, I played that without thinking, without considering his possible moves, and it's hard to do at a time control like this. I thought queen d1 got me out of it, queen e1 got me out of it, but no. Okay, he's up in exchange. Interestingly, keeping more pawns on the board. Yeah, my sneaky little threat here is, say he just plays something like, I don't know, king g7, which it says is good. Oh, it's not even a real threat because he can move here to provide a space for his knight. Anyway, I was trying to make some kind of threats happen. Doesn't like bishop, doesn't like a5. My plan was to go knight a4 and then get my knight into b6. I suppose I should trade first, because now his knight's just jumping into c5. And I thought b4 held things together. Problem is, c4 is just going to fall now. So a4 was inaccurate from the get-go. I should just keep my strong pawn chain strong. Difficult to play when you're down. And things just kind of fell apart completely at this point. The demoralization took hold, and he just kept things simple. mean, I'm making good moves still, but it's just completely lost. -10. So best move difference. Let's look at some of this thing. Am I blue or orange here? I can't make sense of that chart. I'll have to think about that on my own time. Themes. Those are awfully nuanced strategic themes. Isolated pawns, backwards pawns. It's more about simple tactics. Those were the themes. Long diagonals, skewers. Those were the important themes here. So again, at my level and at most levels of chess, tactics, tactics, tactics. That's how I lost this game. That's how I lose most of my games. It's not some in-depth strategic plan that I failed to see coming. It's a single move that I might have overlooked. It's bishop h6, right? It's that I didn't see that queen h4 was guarding the bishop. So this is a useful pattern for me to try to drill into my brain that when queen comes to h4 and you have a fianchetto bishop that supports h6, you don't think about the queen doing that backwards support. You think about how she's going to come at you forwards, right? So that's the backwards move that I wasn't thinking of here. I should have gone with my gut, which was queen f2 or queen e1. I'm sure the computer would also like queen e1 here. Here, I should say. Probably good enough. Now it says that queen e1 is best. I've got these knight b5 ideas until he played a6. So that's the game. Comes down to that tactical awareness. So we'll have to work on that next time. All right, lessons learned, and nothing is a mistake if you learn from it. So let's try to learn from it. Stay feisty, folks. See you next time.